On a scale of 1 to 10, what's the surest you've ever been at any one moment that something absolutely sinister was looking straight at you? I'd rate my experience earlier tonight at about an 8. I was driving home from my parents' house around 10 p.m. They only live about 10 minutes drive from me, but what a difference 10 minutes makes. They're out in the country, no streetlights, it's Michigan in the middle of winter, and I'd made the terrific decision to take a relatively unkept road home. The same road where I collided with a deer not 2 months ago, instantly vaporizing my Christmas fund. It's deer central out there. Well, I was headed down this road at about half the speed limit, eyes peeled for some of the four-legged white-tailed terrors, and my eyes were starting to get strained by the headlights of an oncoming vehicle. It was at least a half-mile away, but the high beams were on. I guessed it was a truck, though I didn't want to look too closely and then be blinded to some furry wrecking machine sauntering out in front of me, so I kept my eyes off that side of the road as much as I dared. As I got closer, I realized I was right, it was a pickup truck. But it wasn't heading toward me, it was parked on the shoulder. And the emergency lights were blinking. I slowed down even more, waiting to see the telltale signs of a deer collision: imploded grille, cracked windshield, missing side mirror, and, obviously, a deer corpse. Once I was alongside the pickup, I still hadn't seen any damage. Now that I was out of the light's glare, I could see that the truck was pulling a horse trailer. The trailer must have been wired in, because the red lights on the back were blinking on and off in time with the emergency lights on the truck. I rolled down my window to talk to whoever was in the cab, but once I looked closer, I realized the truck was empty. "Hello?" I called. No answer. Then I heard the scraping and thumping. It sounded like someone slamming an upside-down bowl onto a surface repeatedly. It was coming from behind the trailer. I looked out my windshield, and saw a loop of rough rope making up part of a knot around a handle on the back of the trailer. I couldn't see the rest of the rope, but the knot seemed to be sliding up and down the handle a bit. I inched forward in my car, peering around the corner of the trailer. Sudden movement startled me. Then I realized what an idiot I was. The rope led to a harness fastened to a horse. The large, brown creature was scraping and stomping its hooves on the ground, standing close to the ditch, stretching its rope across the back of the trailer. As pulled up further, it glanced at me, snorted and went back to stomping. Thinking I was probably irritating it, and knowing there were no other cars for miles, I switched off my headlights. It kept stomping. I looked at the ground around its hooves. The snow was tossed up, and in some spots, the horse had chipped off bits of the dirt shoulder. He'd been out here a while. "Hello?" I called again, fully expecting a response from the dark field on the other side of the ditch. Nothing. I looked at the horse again. Steam shot from its nostrils. Then I looked back at its hooves, and the ground around them. I'm not a Boy Scout, but fresh snow makes it fairly easy to piece simple stories together. In the brief, flashing intervals of dim, red light afforded me by the trailer, I was easily able to make out boot prints alongside the trailer, obviously coming from the cab. They turned and led along the back of the trailer, then into the ditch, past the bubble of red light. Then there were the same boot prints coming up from the ditch, accompanied by hoof prints. Presumably this guy's horse had gotten out of his barn or pasture nearby, and he was out here to retrieve it. That was my Columbo moment. Then there was the whole area in between the horse and the side of the trailer closest to me. I could see the boot prints, but they weren't in a straight line. They seemed to be all over the place, pointing everywhere, like a person jumping around, or hopping from one foot to the next. And mixed in with them were other prints. The new prints looked a bit like the inside of a peace sign, a Y with an extra line between the forked lines, about twice their length. There was no real sole or pad, but each toe, if you could call it that, was thick, at least a couple inches wide. And at the end of each toe print, including the long, rear protrusion, the handle of the fork, I suppose, the snow seemed to have another flaw in it. Not an imprint, really. More like a slit. Like, from a claw. These prints were as mixed up as the boot prints were, but tended to stay closer to the road. Whatever made them, the guy wearing the boots would have to get past it to get back to the cab. Out from that mess of prints, both human and, I guess animal will do, erupted a straight line of boot prints, with long strides, heading back along the road, away from the truck and trailer, past the edge of the red light. They continued into the darkness that I knew would be uninterrupted until the first street light a mile away. The other prints were mixed in with these ones, weaving in and out of the same line. In other words, following. Their strides were at least as long as the bootman's. I stole one more look at the horse, still clearly agitated, and at the prints right behind the trailer. Now, obviously, snow being white, and the trailer's pulsing lights being red, All the snow in the range of the lights was going to be red. But I know it wasn't my imagination that some patches, here and there, were a different shade of red than the rest. And with the dim light and the horse's dark fur, it was hard to be sure, but I thought a few long lines were glistening down the animal's side. I like to think I'm not a stupid man. I saw no benefit in staying here to play detective. I decided to distance myself from the horse, trailer, truck and prints. I flipped my lights on and started rolling away. The horse never stopped staring at me. I swear, it had the closest thing I've ever seen on an animal to the expression of a homeless man who hasn't gotten a penny all day. But as I pulled forward, I just wasn't able to take my eyes off the footprints and whatever prints on the side of the road. About 10 feet past where the red light would have ended, there was another scuffle, both sets of prints mashed together, definitely a couple spots of dark pink snow, and then just the boot prints, continuing their journey. But off to one side, they'd left behind a much larger imprint, roughly human-sized. There were shapes on both sides of the body. They were wide, and somewhat wrinkled, like the imprint of a jacket a child would leave after laying in the snow. They fanned out from the main body, leaving drag marks, like something unfurling. They were also ribbed. I admit I was only viewing this in passing, but I swear I know what I saw. It's hard to describe exactly. But thinking back, I'd say that comparing that shape to a snow angel would seem wrong in more ways than one. I kept moving, picking up just a bit of speed, but I was still going fairly slowly so my tires wouldn't burn out on the snow and ice. I could see the three-toed prints moving from the larger shape back to the chase, just for a few feet, and then, they just ended. The boot prints carried on for another 40 feet or so. Then they ended, too. At this point, I had to stop. I don't mean that I really decided that I wanted to. It's like my brain just needed to verify that I was seeing this right. 2 sets of prints, one human, one not, both just ending. No sign of a change of course, or a dive to the ground, or anything. Pure, untouched snow on all sides. Well, not totally undisturbed. I think something in my brain was just misfiring at that point, trying to make it all fit, and so I looked back once at the trailer and truck, highlighted in a blinking red aura. I could see the horse, still watching me. And then, in the road ahead of the truck, something shifted. It was the truck's headlights. They bounced. The truck's taillights also bounced, just a slight dip toward the ground, then back up, like a brief pressure on the suspension. The trailer shifted just a touch. Now the horse wasn't looking at me. It was looking at the black space above the truck and trailer, the spot on the roof of the trailer that no light could reach. And it was straining against its rope harder than I've ever seen anything fight in my life. My tires burned out briefly before they found traction. So, that was my 8 moment. I really lost count of how many times on the way home I nearly slid into a ditch. I went sideways once. But I always kept control, using some combination of luck and sheer force of will to not get stranded on the road tonight. Now I'm in my driveway. And I'm wishing my garage door was working. Because right now, I'm having my 10 moment. The porch light is illuminating a portion of the roof on one wing of my house. All around me, the freshly fallen snow is undisturbed. But in that one little corner of the roof, I can just make out a pair of imprints marring the scene. I probably don't have to describe them to you. My front door is maybe 30 feet away. 30 feet. I'm wondering if I should try sleeping in the car tonight.
I think it was several weeks ago when it started. The electronics in my house started flickering on and off. At first, it was just a minor annoyance. I'd be on the internet, and my computer would shut down. Or I'd be cooking something in the oven, and it'd turn off halfway through. I called an electrician, who said that the wiring in my house was in tip-top shape. Not believing him, I called several more electricians, all of whom said the same thing. I tried using less electricity in the house, thinking I was overloading it. Eventually, I learned to live with it. What sparked my attention was when my coworkers began to complain of the same thing. The woman in the cubicle over from mine confided in me that her iPod had died, with a full battery, then resumed working minutes later. Soon, we were hearing bits and pieces about it on the news. They told us that the problem would be fixed soon, and nothing more. I soon found out that it wasn't just our area afflicted. Many areas across the country and, later on I'd find out, across the world were being affected. Things began to get worse. By now, many were used to just 1 or 2 of their electronic devices not working at once. But when they began to all shut off at once, and then not work for hours on end, the panic grew. There was no explanation. The media couldn't tell us why. The electricians couldn't tell us why. Then the generators started failing. Most schools and office buildings, and even some private homes, have generators for when the electricity goes out. The generators were working just fine, and then, like their electronic brethren, they began to not work. Children had to go to school in complete darkness on some days. I even remember having to navigate my way through my office building with a flashlight, before the flashlight stopped working, of course. When the lights stopped turning back on, people began to panic. No matter what was done. Some homes were completely left in the dark. Panic set in. Without any media access, people were quite literally in the dark about things. Then the delusions began. People screaming that they were hearing or seeing things. The woman in the cubicle over from mine had a delusion. I assume that it was fairly bad, because she stapled her own eyes. Or so I heard, since by then our building had completely lost power. Society began to break. Electronics keep our species in the know, in the light, and entertain. Without these things, well, we were seeing what was happening. I stopped going to work. No one was really going anywhere, anyway. People were staying at home, stockpiling food and survival necessities, and taking care of their loved ones who were suffering from delusions. During the day, the only time where there was light. Now I saw a man collapse on my lawn. I rushed out to help him, but as soon as I got near him, he started screaming and clawing at the air. "Oh God, the lights. We need the lights. Turn them back on, please." I was afraid to approach him. I took a few steps closer, until what he said froze me in my place. "They'll come if we don't have the lights. Come for us all. Man, woman, child, every one of us." I felt my hair stand up on end. I'm a rational person, but the way this man was screaming, the way his eyes looked, I felt that he may not be just suffering from a delusion. I would have asked the man more, but unfortunately, he expired. I didn't want to leave him on my lawn, but I couldn't call the police, and I'd never seen his face in this neighborhood. I ended up dragging him to the police station across town, even though I knew the cops wouldn't be there. By the time I made my way back, the sun was setting. I felt my hair stand on end again as I rushed to my house, slamming the door shut behind me. What the hell is Pulse? An hour later, I was almost drifting off to sleep. I didn't do much else these days when I heard it. A blood-curdling scream, coming from a few houses over. I shot up in bed, and ran as fast as I could to the house. A few others joined me as we waited to see what was wrong. However, no one came to the door, no one cried for help. One of the men who had come to help decided to check it out. He busted down the door, and disappeared into the darkness inside. A few moments later, we heard his scream, too. But, as we were closer this time, we also heard brand new noises. The sound of flesh being tore from bone, of inhuman laughter, of blood hitting the walls. All I can remember is arriving back home. If I think hard on it, I remember seeing one of them through one of the house's windows. Just its bright white eyeballs, of course. The being itself is black, matching the darkness it lives in. Of course, it does have those teeth. Oh God, those teeth. When it smiled at me through that window, I saw them. Shiny and white and sharp, gore dripping from them. And now, here I am. I've locked myself in my room, only the moonlight from a small window to guide my pen as I write this. I hear the panic outside. They're trying to fight whatever they are, but failing. More screaming, more crunching of bones, more blood staining the streets. It's all I've had to listen to for the past few hours. I'm surprised I haven't gone completely insane, yet. I've had time to think, too. This is why we're afraid of the dark. These beings are the dark, the worst of it. They're the reason that children have to sleep with a nightlight on. Light kills them. That's the smallest amount of light, even coming from a computer screen. They're careful about appearing to humans when it's not mealtime, of course, but now I know why everyone's afraid of the dark when they're a kid. I remember, now. Seeing one of them out of the corner of my eye when I was 5 years old. My mother told me I was just seeing things that it didn't exist. If I can hold out for a few more hours, daylight will come. Maybe help will come. But they won't be able to attack me. I'll be safe. But that probably won't happen, since I can hear them downstairs now. They're coming for me, and that locked door isn't going to hold them off. I'm going to suffer the same fate as those people inside the house. They're clawing at the door, now. I can hear them giggling, like it's some sort of game. I've got a knife in my hand, but what good will it do? Why did the lights go out? Maybe it was just our time, as humans. The darkness is here to cleanse the earth. I can see one at the end of my bed, now. Flashing those teeth at me. I dropped the knife. Why bother? You can't kill what doesn't exist.
Have you guys heard about the story about Julia the painting? I've seen it through a few forums and I'm deeply disturbed. Sorry Anons, I was scrolling through my pictures trying to find a screenshot of the forum, and I had no luck finding it. I even tried Googling it but it just disappeared, which makes it even more creepy. I posted this hoping someone would recognize the story. But I can try to tell the story through memory. Basically the story is being told by this woman talking about her terrifying experiences about the painting. In the story she just moved into this basement suite apartment in this historical building called the Rosalind Square. The whole apartment building was very interesting because the person who built the building was deeply terrified of ghosts and he believed they were after him, so, as he was building it he made stairways that lead to nowhere with weird religious markings on the walls. She didn't think much of it, but her apartment building was in the very bottom corner of the building, practically isolated from all the other rooms. It used to be a janitor room but they renovated it into a bachelor suite. She always felt this eerie feeling about the building, but brushed it off as her being paranoid. One night when she got up to use the washroom she heard a tapping sound coming from the vents. As she leaned over to see what that was, she seen green glowing eyes staring at her. She was so terrified that she ran out of the bathroom and tried to leave through her door, but as she reached for her doorknob to leave her apartment she woke up from her bed gasping for air. As the days progressed her nightmares were slowly getting worse and worse, to the point where she had trouble differentiating reality or fiction. She refused to believe it was anything paranormal and decided her bad dreams were just a manifestation of the stress of moving into a new building alone and the rumors surrounding the building's past. So in the morning as she was brushing her teeth she noticed that the vent cover was on the verge of falling off, so as she leaned over to fix it she found a rolled up picture of this painting and on the back it was labeled Julia. She found it strange, but either way she thought it was a charming picture, and so she bought a picture frame and decided to hang it up on her kitchen wall. Then she went on with her usual daily activities. So, it's in the middle of the night now and she suddenly wakes up to this loud thump noise, and as she wakes up in fear she notices her painting was on the ground, and in the corner of her eye she seen this long and lanky shadow figure standing there staring at her with its glowing green eyes. She was frozen in fear and the creature told her he would not leave her go. The painting did make its way around various different homes, and in this thread different people were telling their own individual stories. Apparently the painting has an attachment and the creature will go with the painting. And when you say Julia out loud while staring at the painting, it's like inviting the demon into your home. That painting means something to the creature. She is angry and is trying to harvest. In other words, if she could get you to kill yourself, she would trap your soul and use your energy as a battery to keep herself strong. I did the best I could to stretch the story through my memory to make it appear more like the original. It was harder for me to recreate this than I thought, and I didn't want to disappoint anyone, feel like it got more hype than it deserved and I couldn't live to its expectations, but damn it I tried. Thanks Anons for being so patient. I hope this story gets some attention. I'm hoping to piece the story together piece by someone who has also came across the original. It's obviously more spooky. Lol.
I have a story for you. Be me. Work at a cafe/chocolate place out in the country, on a farm. Quiet area. We serve homemade stuff. We normally get a lot of old people, especially during the winters. Summers are pretty silent. I do register, serving, cooking. Anything that needs doing really. It's not unusual to get groups of people that come regularly. But there was this real strange group of ladies, the Volunteer Mothers for Proper Education or VMPE, self-important over 40-year-olds who write letters and other stuff to schools, demanding changes. All had the same bumper sticker with their little committee logo, which was the group initials on a set of stairs, black on white. They had 10 members. They first started coming in 2009, seemed pretty normal at first, but we started to notice weird patterns. They all dressed similarly, with cardigans, long dresses and tightly done hair. Not that strange, but they never dressed individually at all. They always ordered the same thing as the head lady. Let's call her the controller. The controller seemed to be the one who organized everything, planned their little committee discussions and all that. The strictest woman I've ever seen. Spoke little, never looked like she smiled once in her life. This group always came in at exactly 2:49 on the dot, and got their food at around 3 o'clock. Every day they'd order something different, but always the same as what the controller had chosen, paid with their own money. One day one of the ladies in the committee decided she didn't feel like the food the controller had ordered. The controller gave her this death stare. I've never seen someone look so angry. The other lady immediately shrinks away. She orders last, getting the same thing as the controller. The group comes back the next day, But there are only 9 members this time. The lady who wanted something else was gone, completely missing. We never saw her again. They come back every day and order the same thing, again and again. One day there was an accident, 2011, this big metal decorative windmill next to the cafe collapsed and broke part of the roof. We have to close for the week. But it's 350 greater than the controller demands the group be served regardless. We're all trying to get everyone out because there was a worry that the windmill could catch fire because the neon sign stuck to it had smashed. Of course, have to give the group their money back and refuse service. I get fucking death stared down by the controller. Beady, hate-filled little eyes, unbelievably dark. They leave, never come back. Note the endofit.wave. One day we get 9 angry, abusive reviews on site, all of them claiming abuse, harassment and other such BS. Storefront windows got scratched up with keys one day. No real proof to convict anyone, but I'm pretty damn sure it was one of them. This goes on. Group keeps spreading bad rumors about our cafe. We heard it through confused customers, bogus delivery orders, even a false police report one day. Told us a lady claimed we dealt heroin under the counter, easily proven untrue. Eventually they seemed to give up, never see them again. A little bit later I heard from a friend who works at a diner on the highway about a similar incident with the group, but they only had 8 members as far as he saw. The finale, 2015, few weeks ago, hadn't seen anything involving that group for years now, completely forgot until I saw a bumper sticker, VMPE, started seeing their group name everywhere, heard they got a new office in the town center, funding community events and other such stuff, also heard the mayor's wife had joined their group, never saw the original 9 ladies again. Except for the controller, she came back to our cafe, acted like she didn't know us, asked to put up a flyer on our window, we say sure, she does so and leaves. Flyer is for some school fundraiser thing. I was pretty terrified when I saw her tbh, she looked like 90 now, but she was only like 50 in 2011. She doesn't look so strict and angry anymore, she looked tired, really tired. I looked at the flyer from outside and saw her get into her car just outside the building and drive off. She's driving a ute now, utility vehicle, like a pickup for non-Australians. It's covered in mud and shit, and battered as hell. She used to drive a spotless red sedan. The back of the ute is filled with rope, shovels and a few filled trash bags. Bumper sticker is on the back window. Vmper. Never saw the lady again. I still have no idea what to think, but it's left me kinda scared. I'll post again if I find out anything else weird about the VMPE ladies. I live in a real country-ass town, no real connection to the city. And they don't have a website. I think they're still a pretty small group who mostly invite moms and such. I've got a picture of the front of their office, and one of their posters, which I took for that diner friend I mentioned. But what is the point of that flyer? There's no phone number or anything, is there? I don't see one. How bizarre. Sounds like a weird little cult. DBH, though I'm a longtime fan of /x/ and stuff, I'm not a big believer in stuff like cults and all that, but this group's always been weird. I don't actually know if they have a phone number, I can't find one. Here's another picture from a while ago, outside a high school. I looked through my camera cards from last year and found an ad they had up on the metal boards they put around the football pitches. I've blocked out the address for obvious reasons. There's something about the way they word these things that's hella creepy. That's pretty much the entire story. I haven't seen that lady or any of the others since then. But this thread got me thinking and I asked a few of my friends and found out one of their mums was a member of VMPE. This morning I went to his house and asked her about it. She said the group does shit like write petitions and send letters to school principals and such to try and change a few rules. Show gets into a group with, like, 5 other moms from the group every Friday and they discuss that all seems pretty normal tbh. But when I asked her about the 10 ladies at the cafe she said she'd never seen them before, and she didn't really know anyone else from VMPE. She doesn't know who runs it either. That was all she knew. Kinda unsure what to do about this now, unless y'all have any suggestions.
I have a story that my father told me. It happened to him when I was a high schooler. Be my father, live in 2-story house. Bedrooms are upstairs, living room, kitchen and computer room are downstairs. Nice neighborhood. But had some unexplained thefts, nothing serious, sleeping peacefully. When something wakes you up, look at clock, it's 3 a.m. Suddenly, stairs creak, wooden stairs, they creak under weight. Hear it again, just a second, like someone walks step by step or something low weight. Dogs and cats are definitely outside. At this point eyes are open and listening. See a flash of light coming from the stairs. Doors have glass parts. Hear the creaking again. Then one more flash. Finally decides to check it out. Can't go back to sleep anyway. Go out of the door. Try to reach for the light switch when suddenly a creak. Glance toward stairs in reflex. See something humanoid on all fours. Limbs all twisted. One hand grasping a step. Holding something in the other. Lock eyes for a second, frozen in fear. When the thing slightly moves, jump back into room. Run around like a madman, looking for anything that can be used as a weapon. Nothing there. Picks up a fucking chair. Storms out, ready to pummel even a tank with the chair. Except there is nothing. Mom is up too at this point. Check the house as quiet as possible, so the kids won't wake up. Find nothing, even with lights on. Go back to sleep, he told me next day. Asked if I heard anything. I said I didn't, and maybe he just had a nightmare, since Mom didn't hear or saw anything. The truth is, I did hear and see everything. You know, I had a curfew at 10 p.m., but my parents went to bed before that, so I played some game and finished at 3 a.m. I used my phone as a light source, only when needed, and went on all fours, because I thought distributing the weight might ease down the creaking. I thought I will die when Dad looked at me, but when he went back, I bolted back to my room and pretended I was asleep.
/x/ I need your help with something. Let me preface by explaining that my mother is a huge alcoholic. I pretty much had to raise myself as she spent most of my childhood in a drunken haze. It wasn't that bad. You sort of get used to it when it's the only reality you know. She wasn't aggressive or violent. Mostly just docile in a comatose sort of way, and very secretive. One thing that always bothered me is that she would never tell me anything about my father. All my grandparents know is that she turned up pregnant one day and refused to abort. Not knowing about half your parentage leaves you feeling like there's a hole in your life, you know? That changed 2 days ago. I don't know why, but she suddenly decided to talk about him. Now I wish she hadn't. What she told me has chilled me to the very core. Drunkenly slurring, she said I have no mortal father. In her youth she was a Satanist, and I was conceived in the midst of a violent ritual. Straddling a naked priest bound over a pentagram drawn with her own blood, she rode him to the point of climax. With his engorged member poised on the verge of ejaculation, she pierced his heart with a dagger, killing him instantly and dispatching his soul to Satan's care. The dark seed that sired me, as she termed it, was sourced from a soulless corpse. Its heritage was death. She went on to explain that, far from being a human, I was merely a walking egg for her true child. One day, she said, my body will be disposed as an empty husk, and the demon that has been forming within will stride the world to usher in a new era. In that moment I will be nothing, for I am nothing. I have no soul of my own. My life is a facsimile. I have not been able to sleep since. What she told me has horrified me. How am I to be sound of mind ever again, knowing that my own mother is a role-playing fag? Worse yet, what if role-playing faggotry is a genetic trait? Am I doomed to a life of shitposting? Help me /x/. Can I be saved? Still have nightmares about this. Grew up in a village called Eam in England, better known as the Plague Village. You can read about it here. http://n.wikipedia.org/wiki/eam. The village is surrounded by huge foothills and dense woodland. There is a particularly famous spot outside of the village down an old overgrown path called that was named by the locals the Delph. This is where they would hold the funeral services for the plague victims during the outbreak. It's a huge strangely shaped cave-like thing. When I was a younger me and all my friends were deathly afraid of this place, you would hear stories about floating vicars and ghosts that would follow you home. In the daytime we would go down and explore the area surrounding it and find cow skulls on pikes littered about. One day one of my school friends suggests we man up and go and explore the Delph. We all agree and go down about 4 p.m. with a torch. We get there and only 2 of us will actually go inside the cave, me and my friend. 3 other of my friends wait outside. We go in, it feels horribly cold. I felt like I was being watched the whole time. We get to the end of the cave, it's not very deep. My friend finds a small crack that you can squeeze through. She starts to proceed down the narrow space with me following. All of a sudden he screams and runs at me. He drops the torch. I'm stuck in the entrance to the crack while he trying to push his way past me in the complete darkness. We eventually get out and run out of the cave. All other friends decided to fuck off and leave us. We practically run all the way home just as the sun sets. She is still crying as we reach his house. We don't talk about it what happened until the next day at school. He tells me he saw a white face smiling at him in that narrow crack, and that it was coming towards him. Safe to say we never went down there again.
Alone one night, no way of going out tonight, raining like a motherfucker, decided to binge some old movies, haven't busted out the DVD player in ages, it's all the way up in the attic. Some friends set up a little den up there a while ago, but we pretty much abandoned it after a week. Never really go in the attic unless I need to store some useless crap. At the little door that opens and drops down the ladder, make my way up there. Everything is pitch black. It shouldn't be this dark since there is usually light from the street coming in through the window. See something big shift slightly out of the corner of my eye, jump like a fucking retard and start yelling, "Okay, who the fuck is up here?" Hadn't planned on anything actually being up here, nearly shit myself as I see this big gnarled up face looking at me, creepy eyes just staring right through me. Every part of me wanted to get the fuck out of there. Notice the thing lurch forwards, dull light flooding in and giving me a better look at the thing's fucked up form as it moved away from the window. As it slowly reaches out, build up all the courage I have and swat at what I assumed was its hand and ask as loud as I could, "Who or what the fuck are you?" Slowly leans forwards, its face inches away from mine as it whispers, "Read the first letter of every line."
Be like sear old me, sleeping, automatically open eyes looking directly to clock next to me, 3 a.m., close eyes, keep sleeping. This repeats for weeks, or a month, IDK, never 2:58 a.m., never 3:01 a.m., 3 a.m., always never felt or heard anything. Used to always tell this story just as something weird that happened to me. Never thought anything of it. Until 20 years later when I learned what that hour is supposed to mean, almost shit bricks.
Not really paranormal per se. But still scary. B13, at home alone for first time, waiting on pizza guy to come, parents ordered before they left to go out. Hear knock on door, assume it's pizza, look out window to left of door, some big ass guy in a hoodie, standing there with his hands in his pockets, panic, knocking gets louder, panic harder, he's practically breaking down the door, banging is so loud, see headlights, gentle knock, look out window, it's actually the pizza dude, grab pizza and throw him $20, keep the change. JPG, run upstairs and hide under bed with pizza. Bed was against the wall and had this really heavy wooden set it sat on. I was small enough to slide underneath between the wall and mattress, grab DS and play games while eating pizza, heard banging on windows and doors downstairs, turned to DS and waited under bed, felt safer, fell asleep under bed. My parents came home and panicked when they could find me. Crawl out since I was under the bed. I told them I was comfy. Didn't want them to not leave me alone at home again. Crazy thing is there was a rapist running around my town they never caught. He was going after teenage boys and girls. I also had this super vivid dream when I had pneumonia as a little kid, super sick, really high fever, pass out early in the evening when the sun is still up, dream that I'm walking in the forest behind my elementary school, all my classmates are fucking around doing various things around me, childhood crush is holding my hand as we walk down this path, it's a super innocent cute dream. My friend Sydney suddenly runs in front of us and jumps into a puddle. The second her boots hit the surface of the water, I'm ripped out of the dream by this huge clap of thunder. I'm instantly wide awake. I can't move. I can't open my eyes. What the fuck is going on? Someone's there. I can hear breathing, lightning flashes, and I can see it behind my eyelids. Something strokes the side of my face. I can't scream. It has long, sharp nails and clammy skin. It fucking leans down and whispers in my ear, yes. Yes, it hisses the words out. It's an old woman, it's a fucking witch. I manage to pry my mouth open and scream my fucking lungs out. Mom runs upstairs, helps me open my eyes, fucking traumatized the hell out of me. This is a former co-worker's story. It did not happen to me, so I can only say that during the 2 years I worked closely with this guy and talked a lot with him, he is an honest man, is not delusional, was not trolling me, and is still uneasy about this event. And I never want to rush to believe this man is not lying. Be this man, Frank, first night in old house he just bought and finally got all moved into. Lives alone, be asleep, no lights on, wake up because someone or something is touching his foot, still half asleep, begin to comprehend, that's fingers. That's a fucking hand probing around at my legs, quickly begin to clear head from sleep and realize this is not a dream, and this is fucked, doesn't believe in 9/ must be a burglar/murderer/pervert, determined, fight or flight mode, think to self. I'm going to grab this fucker, hand keeps probing, grabbing, working its way up the body, wait for it. JPG, hand touches face, bite it hard, hold bite. Reach out and turn on nightstand light. Get ready to attack, Nothing there. He was forever scared in that house and eventually moved out because of it. So I was hiking the Pacific Coast Trail this last week and well, I'm just going to Greentext it, be hiking PCT headed south towards Crater Lake near Lake Maidu. As I cut across one of the other trails, a couple of Forest Service guys hike up from the east. One is clearly in Leo in full kit with an AR-10. The other guy isn't Leo, but he's got a rucksack covered in smoke canisters and carrying a huge saw with teeth an inch deep. They asked me how I am and if I'd seen anything odd around. Say I'm hiking the PCT, nothing weird really to note. Ask what's up. They say something about a problem bear near one of the upper lakes that they're chasing off with pepper grenades and to watch out since I'm alone. Shrug. Thank them for the info, keep hiking. Set up my camp a mile or so down the trail. A bit after dark, gunshots start to my west. All night, every couple hours I hear gunshots, slowly circling around along the west to the south. Don't get any sleep. A bit before dawn I hear another volley of shots and a horrendous noise to the east. Sounds like a giant pig getting stuck and bleeding out slowly. Noise stops a bit after dawn. Climb out of my tent, start packing, start hiking south. Can smell very bad smoke, half-rotted meat, and copper blowing from the south. The two Forest Service guys wander up from east. Leo's pack is significantly lighter. The guy with the saw has one smoke grenade left and the saw is covered with some kind of black stuff. Ask what the fuck was going on. The guy with the saw just gives me a shit-eating grin and says a bear. Leo nods in affirmation and adds it was just a bear. Don't worry about it. It's gone. They are giving no fucks about the smell or the black shit on the saw that looks like it's smoldering. Ask if I need anything. And wish me luck on my hike. Can't get any good sleep for the rest of my trip. Get home last night. Realize my camera's just up and gone. What the fuck was that shit /k/?
A memory. When thinking back to my earliest memories, nothing is concrete. A string of hazy images come to mind like random snapshots out of time, each one associated with certain feelings and emotions. They are imbued with a mystical dreamlike quality, a gift born of childhood naivety. The magic of every Christmas when Santa was still real, for example, is an experience of pure joy that is lost with maturity. Many of these snapshots are impossible to place in any sort of context. They're just there, sunken in the crevices of the brain without rhyme or reason. Playing with my dad's beard in a wood-paneled room, him smiling down at me, comforting. Or discovering a long row of marching ants in someone's wooded backyard, all by myself, exciting. Some of them don't even seem real in hindsight. Did I actually fall from that tree by the lake, only to land on my feet without a scratch? Was it really a dream? I don't think so. Sure, I have memories of distant dreams, but there is a clear distinction between the dreams and reality of my past. I don't know how I can tell, I just can. And for this reason one memory has always troubled me. The experience was so surreal, and yet certain details stand out with marked clarity.
I'm not exactly sure when it happened. I couldn't have been older than 5 or 6. My brother and I were sleeping in our bunk bed. Because he was older, he got the top bunk. I had just woken up, but it was still nighttime. Something felt different. I remember seeing and smelling the rain, but not hearing any. The window was open and it was very cold in the room. Why was the window open? The curtains were gently flapping but there was no breeze. The quiet was so intense it buzzed through my ears. I'd been lying on my side, with one arm dangling off the edge of the bed. Gradually I became aware that it was warmer near the floor. I felt some kind of heated breeze gently strike my hand, coming and going in short bursts. Finally, recognized it as someone's breathing. Then the woman slid out from under my bed. The nightlight showed that she had long blondish hair and wore a white nightgown, and in the dimness I thought it was my mother. I wasn't at all scared. It's funny how a child's mind works. What's mommy doing under the bed? Must be getting something, or checking for monsters. I was too tired to say anything and remained motionless, watching. The woman was on her back, but her face stayed in the shadows. She rolled over and crawled on all fours to the far end of the bed, then glided up the ladder to the top bunk. Her every movement was silky smooth and completely silent. She reminded me of a white ribbon dancing in the wind. I closed my eyes and fell back to sleep. I also remember my brother telling me about a weird dream the next morning. He dreamt of a woman who lived under the floor, and came out at night to play in the rain. When her clothes got soaked, she went back inside and would whisper things to anyone who was sleeping. It became a recurring dream for him until our family moved out of that house. Strange, what the brain chooses to remember.
Rehab. When I went through AA a few years back, I met a girl who was a street walker for a while. She had been addicted to meth and was homeless, living on the streets with her boyfriend. They used the abandoned house on Route 41 to squat once in a while, but she made it a point to tell the group that if you ever laid down in that house at night, you were not to rise until the next morning. They knew fellow homeless who got freaked out by the ripping noises and screams during the night. Those that got up to run weren't heard from again. She lost her boyfriend this way. She said he wasn't going to run, but he had to know what he was hearing. He got up and walked to the doorway to the hall. She couldn't see him or hear him at all, even though he was just peeking through the door, 3 feet away. After about 10 minutes, she sat up from her makeshift bed to see if he was still there. She said as she sat up, reality began to shift around her. The pitch black turned to a room lit by a deep crimson light, and her perception skewed and twisted, as if reality was a funhouse mirror. He was there suddenly, she'd said. He sort of phased into existence in front of her, and pieces of him were being ripped off by something her mind was no longer able to recollect. He screamed in agony and looked her in the eyes. She put all of her being into slowly, nonchalantly lowering herself back to the bedding. As she did, it all shifted back to the dark house with muffled screams and rips that she now knew were his. She checked herself into rehab the next day.
Nope thread. Events that actually happen to you are encouraged. Nope as always, I'll start. B20. Helping stepdad install new wood stove in basement. Clear all the basement crap out of the way. Working on west wall, only different part of foundation. Working. Chat about what it could be. Stepdad that believes what he sees type. Get back to work in silence for a while. Both look up at odd noise, scratching and scrapping, too loud and heavy to be rodents. Stepdad asks what's going on. Only lives with us a short while so far. Shrug. Watching the brick part of wall. Loud snapping sound. Almost snap pop followed by the sound of something large tumbling along the ground. Huge bang. Dust jumps off brick part of foundation. Dead silence. Stepdad staring agape at wall. Then to me. I'm shaken. Seen/heard lots of stuff before but not this. Pick up wrench and tap on wall. Soft moaning. Then footsteps answer sissy cold sweat. Feeling of absolute dread and horror. Tell stepdad we have to go. He doesn't think twice. Nope the fuck upstairs. Decides to tend garden to calm down. Are as far away from the house as we can be within property boundary. Pale as fuck and absolutely silent. We just stand on the other side of yard till more people come home.
B20. Hiking with friends in nearby woods. Find cool path a ways in. Area gets all wet. Tall trees and muddy skunk cabbage everywhere. Cross broken trees laid like a bridge. Stop on a big rock for some weed smokin'. Great shit. Fucking flyin'. Forget way back. Darkness begins to fall. Can no longer see path. Suddenly feeling of danger. We stop to try and find anything familiar. Heavy breathing from behind me. I was in back of the group. Hear whisper in my ear. It's all ogre now. MFW Shrek stole our weed.
Uncle was dying of cancer, on hospital bed. Doctor said he had 1 day left to live. Sad. Go to my room and lock the door. Randomly decide to do a blood sacrifice 19 kilobytes JPG by sacrificing my life for his. Drew a pentagram on a piece of paper and then cut my palm with a knife and soaked the paper with blood. Prayed that my uncle gets better in exchange for my life. Next day uncle makes a miraculous recovery. This was just a coincidence, alright?
Alright you fuckers, SimCity 5 story time. Start on my first city. Oil everywhere. City booms on my oil-driven economy. 60,000 people reached within 3 months. Start getting large fire more often than usual. Chalk it down to Sims being autistic. Suddenly breaking news. Fires all across the city. Arsonists suspected. MFWI have no police station. Plop down station and achievement get first arrest. Think I got the arsonist fucker. Same day 6 fires in city at once. Panicked by 5 fire stations, place them throughout city. Fires still occur daily and in numbers. Raging hard as traffic blocks fire trucks from getting to fires before buildings burn down. Decide to catch this serial arsonist at all cost. Build 3 more police stations and precinct with detectives and helis. I decided to stake out industrial district, that is his hunting grounds. Wait for what feels like forever until random factory in flames and I see a lone man walk away.
Winston Sexton. Follow him around town to observe his movements. Continues to walk around city and burn buildings. 2 more buildings. Follow him back to his apartments. Wait for him to leave in the morning. He goes to Sim University, by day a normal student, by night a sadistic serial arsonist. I am beside myself on what to do. Fucker never gets caught and every night burns down. At least 3 buildings, put fire stations and police stations everywhere. My city is now a bankrupt police state. I'll follow him around in horror as he attends class then burns my factories.
His rampage continues. He has been at it for over a month now. A fire is always burning in my city. People are pissed at the fact fires burn all the time. I continue to follow Winston around on his adventures. Class, fire, like a perfect predator. My city is now lit solely by his fires. The fucker burnt down my coal plant.
Winston doesn't give a fuck, burns down buildings in front of police. People are pissed. Protesters at my mansion and city hall. I am watching him right now. Walked into a store and commented how great the shopping is. The building he walked into is now on fire. He has evolved into a fire demon. Holy shit, I am now scarred for my city.
Normal day in Washtub City. I follow Winston around and he burns things down. Today was not different, except today I zoomed in on Winston and discovered he was a nigger. The serial arsonist student nigger. As he leaves the university he walks by the brand new police precinct. He just casually strolls by, MFW when the place goes up in flames. I get pissed. Place cost $200K to build, rage hard and delete his home. Can't seem to find Winston any longer. What have I done?
City seems to gone back to normal. I have gotten my economy back on track. Power's been restored. Water as well. Fires are down to one every few days. Retire large part of fire and police department. 2 months post Winston. MFW in 6 buildings on fire. Stare at screen and blink furiously. Oil refinery, wind farm, and Sim University on fire, as well multiple other random buildings. The day of reckoning is here. Winston lives. Scramble as I build up fire stations and search sidewalks for Winston. Cannot find him. Regret every deleting Winston's house. City continues to burn.
Most the city is on fire now. Winston has achieved his final form. I cannot locate him. Ghost fire nigger demon. More buildings burn now than ever. Nuclear reactor on fire. Entirety of industrial district burns. I have lost all control. Fuck this. Claim new plot and begin again. I shall never return to Winston's hunting grounds. New land, new city. Fuck you, Winston Sexton.
He's come up to my room almost every night for years. He's about 6 feet tall, if I had to guess. He's very old, at least 70. He's always heavily dressed in thick layers of clothing, making it difficult to guess his weight or body type. To be completely honest, I'm not entirely sure he is a male. That's just a placeholder pronoun, I suppose. He's never gotten into my room. I'm sure of that. He's tried. Mostly just stands outside my room, on the deck, pressed up against the glass window of the double doors. He can get up on the deck directly from an outside staircase. I tried removing the steps last month. He didn't come up that night. The next morning, the mangled, flattened body of my 16-year-old cat had been shoved through the mail slot of the main entrance on the ground floor. I spent that day repairing the deck staircase. I used to not have curtains over the glass double doors. The first night he came, he was in full view. The lower half of his face was pressed against the glass. A thick hood covered his eyes. His mouth opened, and he started to lick the glass in a small circle, while his wrinkled hands rubbed against the door, creating a horrible squeaking sound. Immediately I screamed. As I fumbled for my phone, to call the police, he slammed a fist on the door, turned around, and jumped over the deck railing. When the police arrived, I gave them my description, and told them where he went. This all happened around 1 a.m., as it has ever since. Now, my deck is about 3 stories off the ground, down sheer cliff overlooking a field. While most people would probably survive the fall, they wouldn't do so without seriously fucking up something. You'd think an elderly man would break his legs, rendering him stationary. At the base of the deck, the police found 2 deep boot imprints, presumably where he fell. Leading off from the imprints was a clear trail where he had gone through the tall grass. Shallow. Alternating left, right prints led through the trail with a long stride. He hit the ground and sprinted, possibly uninjured. The police followed the trail into the woods at the edge of my property. About 50 feet in, there was a small, makeshift camp. It had a brown pup tent, a small fire pit, and a pile of dead rodents. One rodent was skewered over the pit. I told the police I did not want this camp on my property, and it was taken down. Almost every night since, around 1 a.m., he's there. If I call the police, he runs. I bought a shotgun, prepared to defend myself. I sat up, waiting. I've done this a few times, and when I do, he doesn't come. Not until doze off. Then I wake to the squeaking sound of skin against glass. He makes sure I know he's still there, then he runs. If I do anything to prevent him getting up, Something of mine breaks the next morning. In the case of my removal of the stairs, he killed my cat. Otherwise, he's always outside. Standing on the deck. Pressed against the glass. I bought some curtains, and hung them over the doors. I never go out there anymore, and I never pull the curtains back. I only know he's still here because of the horrible squeaking sound. I tried to move out. Tried to sell the house and leave. The morning after I posted the listing, a small note scrawled on birch bark was tossed in my mail slot. On it, the personal details of every member of my immediate family were listed. I pulled the house listing immediately. If I'm ever gone for more than a few days, I come back to broken windows, destroyed houseplants, and dug up yard. After a week-long vacation once, I came home to find all my goldfish fried in a pan on my stove. The police have tried to get me to move away. I don't think I can tell them about the note. I'm almost positive something bad will happen if I do. Ever since the stairs incident, he's gotten bolder. He's been in the house while I'm here, and I think he's always around. Not just in the middle of the night anymore. I've caught glimpses of him. I always immediately run to my bedroom. I've heard him fiddle with the lock. I swear I've heard both doors to this room rattle simultaneously. He wants to get in here. For now, I think I'm safe. I have my shotgun in case he tries to attack. While I know he's gotten into the house, I'm sure he'll never get into my room. I've walled myself in, you see. Last time I left this house was when I fixed the outside stairs. I've since walled off the door to my bedroom, and the only way out is through the glass doors on the deck. I'll have to leave eventually, and I know he'll be waiting. If he isn't, then I can only pray for my family. On my daughter's birthday, I got her a set of pastels and a notebook, among other various toys. She loved them, and immediately went about scribbling some drawings in the notepad. Like any proud parent, I put a few of them up on the refrigerator. She drew things like the family cat, our house, her grandmother, my mother-in-law, and the goldfish. His name is Fishy. However, she started to draw some rather grim-looking pictures, featuring a purple-clad witch, or whatever she is. Apparently her name is Barbara. Neither I nor my wife know anybody named Barbara. I asked who she was, and she told me, she's the lady that watches me sleep. I was dumbfounded. I asked her, what do you mean, she watches you sleep? She replied, yay, she sits near my bed every night and watches me until I fall asleep. This got me very concerned, not only for the safety of my daughter, but for the well-being of my wife and other child as well. I have a newborn. That same day, I went out to the local hardware store and purchased security camera equipment. I installed it all around the perimeter of the house, and put 2 cameras facing my daughter's room window. At this point, I thought it might be one of the local vagrants peeping in at my daughter. Since I don't live in the best neighborhood, this was entirely a possibility. We do have a few crazies that stay under the bridge nearby and take drugs. The next day, I asked my daughter if she saw Barbara that night. When she told me that she did, I went right to the security camera and reviewed the footage. I saw nothing. I had to be sure, so I went over it again, this time slower. Still nothing. It was then that I decided to set up security cameras inside her room. I didn't tell her about it, then I waited. The next morning, sure enough, she told me she had seen Barbara again. Upon viewing the footage, I saw nothing unusual. You cannot imagine the feeling of relief that swept over my body. I felt as if everything was going to be alright, and I can put this whole Barbara mess out of my head. That was, until my daughter came up to me. What she told me shook me down to my very core. She told me that Barbara was angry at me. She said that Barbara doesn't like being watched. She said that Barbara is going to hurt me if I don't stop watching her. These are the pictures of Barbara.
A couple months ago, my friend's cousin, a single mother, had gotten a new cell phone. After a long day of work, she placed her phone down on the counter and started watching TV when her son came to her and asked if he could play with her new phone. She told him to not call anyone or mess with text messages, and he agreed to do so. At around 11:20 p.m., when she was getting tired, she decided to tuck her son in and go to bed herself. She proceeded to his room to see that he wasn't there. She went to her room to find him sleeping on her bed with the phone in his hand. Browsing through her phone, she noticed only minor changes such as a new background, banner, etc., and headed towards the pictures section. She began deleting the pictures he took when she came across the last one. When she first saw it, she couldn't believe it. It was her son, sleeping on her bed, but it was as if the picture was taken by someone else above him. It shows the left half of what seems to be an elderly woman's face.
His happened to me a little bit ago, around 3 weeks or so. Little bit of background info, I live in slightly rural Alaska and the area around my house is heavily wooded, be me, taking out trash around 11 p.m. Dark as fuck, very high winds, trees bending and flailing, put away trash and glance across the street into woods, all of a sudden the wind stops, quieter than death, WTF.png. I look around into the woods and I see the outline of a figure, Waterayudwanjan I squint a little and I begin to see its features, very tall, about 7 feet, and very pale with a gaunt face and sunken, dark eyes. Worst part, its sickening grin. I get chills just thinking about it. As I turn to run into my house the wind starts again. As is from the snap of a finger I haven't seen the thing again but it's still freaky as hell. And sorry about this, not what you guys were looking for, but I thought it was pretty spoopy.
Laying in a bunk bed with my friend on top. We're both about 7 to 8 years old. Friend is scared of the dark so we have to have the door open. About to fall asleep when his dad walks into the room. Gives my friend a shiny rock and says, "I stole this from the monster in the forest." He's mad now. "Can you hide it under your pillow tonight?" Friend just nods as his dad walks out. Neither of us are able to sleep, at least I learned why he was afraid of the dark. I posted this on another thread but with Latin America. I am a kid 10y. Oh. Poor as fuck school. Every year we had this organization called Dare come to our school and tell us about how drugs are bad, etc. These guys were legit good and did this thing on most schools. We always got this fatty good guy come to our school with candies and papers about drugs equals bad. On the 5th year the fat guy did not came. On its place we got this guy with a visible real gun on his chest near the shoulder, who told us the following: "I am a federal agent. I only respond to the president. I am here to take you all in some days to our training building, and train all of you. We will be going in a sealed bus. None of should never see where are we going. Males and females will have an obligatory body inspection there. No matter what. Do not disobey orders. Tell your parents to do not freak out because none of you will be able to communicate with them once we're there." Of course, to most of us this was fucking cool instead of creepy because we were being promised training with real weapons, survival skills and cool gear. The teachers had this obvious disbelief face which I did not understood back then. Shit got down the second time he arrived because he kind of molested one of the class girls trying to demonstrate how to check for drugs deep inside a vagina. My lady teacher freaked out, but did not force the guy out because, I guess now, she had fear because the guy had a gun like I mentioned early. She just told him that his class time was over and he basically stopped masturbating that poor scared girl. The next day he came to have another class, but the school director and other teachers didn't let him inside, and called the police. The guy just left and did not came again. Our teacher later told us that they talked with Dare and they sended out the same fat guy from past years to our school. However, after the initial confirmation he went missing, never appeared.
Day 13, in the Boy Scout summer camp, major storm rolls through the area we're staying. Next day we go out to clear the trails, me and 4 other scouts clearing out part of a trail. Hear something on 2 legs about 50 feet off the trail in the woods. Think it's our scout master and call out to him. Sound immediately stops, go back to clearing the trails, then hear some weird screeching and something running really fast in the woods. Me and the other young scouts are freaking out. Our senior patrol leader, 17-year-old kid, huddles us up, can tell he's freaked out too, says for us to stick close together and walk back to camp. Can still hear the thing running around screeching following us to our camp. We yell out hoping the scouts in the camp can hear us. As we yell out we hear at least one other of the things running around on the other side of the trail. We're being boxed in from both sides. Other younger scouts want to make a run for it. Senior patrol leader says no. We stick together. Then we hear and see a ranger truck coming towards us. The younger scouts run for it. The senior patrol leader looks at me, then into the woods. Then he starts running too. Fuck. Start running after them myself. We get to the ranger truck and he gets out. Start telling him we're being chased by monsters. She starts laughing. Turns out a nearby rancher raises emus and some got out in the storm.